All right, boys, how are we today?
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah. Good weekend?
It was alright. Missed the Six Nations a bit though, but
There was plenty of games this week, apart from Six Nations. There is rugby apart from the Six Nations. It's on every weekend. Whee!
Oh, for fuck's sake, who let Rugby Twitter in on this call? Oh, why are you looking at geopolitical tensions between Russia and Ukraine? There's other gunfights going on in the world, you know. You plastic fans. That's what I think about it.
The Six Nations. The best and the worst of times in the rugby calendar. I sort of wish rugby didn't have fans, or at least I wish it was in the terms and conditions of being a rugby fan that you had your internet privileges revoked. And people listening might go, oh, you wouldn't have an audience then. But joke's on you, we don't have an audience anyway. Should we just talk about some bloody rugger?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right.
Let's go.
So, as a rarity on this podcast, we've all actually watched all of the relevant rugby that is going to be discussed. All 6 matches, I think. I guess we can talk a little bit about the lay of the land and predictions for the rest of the tournament going forward. We've obviously got England-Wales coming this weekend.
We do.
Rugby, podcast, derby.
Well, if Josh Adams has been released from some Dublin prison, then I feel that will really, really benefit Wales this weekend.
Josh Adams should have been arrested for what he did, not yellow carded. He should have been arrested and taken off the pitch because that was the cheapest of cheap shots.
We're all aware of his arrest, right?
He should be getting life, really, for that assault
Oh.
on Sexton. It was disgraceful.
If he takes the field on Saturday, we'll see a little bulge around the ankle because he is. I've got it on good knowledge that he is actually on remand.
Do you reckon he'll plead guilty?
He's banged to rights.
Oh, I think he has
He's
to.
absolutely banged to rights. It reminded me of that Alex Ferguson thing when Van Persie got kicked. And he's like, he could have been killed. He could have been killed.
But this time, it was true. He could have been.
He could have been killed.
He could have.
It was an assault. He shouldn't have been yellow carded. He should have been arrested. Thank you, Off the Ball, for your beautiful expert analysis.
Honestly, where would we be without Off the Ball?
Thank you, and shut up. So I've had a lot of people get in touch and ask us for a more detailed analysis of the Six Nations. It just seems like nobody's talking about the stuff that really matters when it comes to the rugby, so let's crack on with that. The big topic people want to know about is, who do we think have been the imposters, the saboteurs, the treacherous traitors?
That's right. For those of you who didn't tune into our Six Nations preview show, we actually pitched the idea of a new form of rugby taking inspiration from the popular video game Among Us.
Now, what a lot of you won't know is that our bond with Big Billy B is a pretty firm one, and he loved the idea so much that he decided to trial it in this year's championship. So, boys, can we reveal our top picks for who stood out as a potential imposter over the first 2 rounds of the Six Nations?
Now, before we start, I've got to say that I think everybody who was selected as the imposter did a brilliant job. I think all round it was a huge
We have
success.
to give a round of applause.
Yeah.
Round of applause to all the imposters.
Yeah. So, I think probably the most obvious one is Luke Cowan-Dickie. Round 1 against Scotland.
Yeah.
7-point lead. About, 20 minutes to go. Crossfield kick. He's put himself defending on the wing, which is already big imposter energy. And then the kick's gone up.
And 2, he tried to be Kasper Schmeichel.
Well, I like that he suffered an immense injury to kind of cover his tracks as well, because the people would say, "Oh, if you were the imposter, you would try to keep yourself safe." But he just all caution to the wind, break your coccyx, mate. So I think you've got to respect that. Another one.
It's a bold strategy.
It was very bold, but one that I've got to kind of. I don't look on as favourably as Cowan-Dickie is Finn Russell.
I think this one was genius. He gets his team in a position where they can win the game and knows he's the one that's going to win it for them. He pulls all the strings, only to get yellow carded accidentally. I didn't mean to do that. Nice work, Finn.
After being prime Dan Carter the week before, he goes and does that. He was so obviously the imposter that I just don't think he'd get away with it.
The only thing with Finn is that he has a little bit of history of this before, and we know for a fact that this is the first trial period of Among Us rugby.
Mm-hmm. True.
And Finn has done this before, where he has played like prime Dan Carter against England, made all of them look like mugs, and then played against another Six Nations team and played like me with one knee on a Saturday afternoon. Like kicks out on the full, missing touch from penalties, yellow card for a slap down. It is peak Finn Russell, but I think that's the genius of it. He's crafted this image for himself, and now he's like, I can sort of hide as the imposter here.
Well, another suggestion. I think Wales truly ran with the imposter energy against Ireland and made everybody but Tane Basham the imposter against Ireland, but especially Josh Adams.
Yeah.
Actually, I think Wayne Pivac was the imposter then, for just picking Josh Adams at 13. That people, there was enough people on Twitter that went, oh yeah, and he kind of floated the idea in the autumn, and then Josh Adams mysteriously pulled out in the warm-up. That was him kind of like testing the waters, and then he went for it here. So that is, nobody is looking at him as the imposter. Everybody's looking at Josh Adams. So Wayne Pivac, that is beautiful.
Do you think
work.
That's genius?
It is, isn't
That's
it?
Genius.
Do you think from Pivac it was a calculated decision, or do you think maybe it was a coincidence? You know, maybe he watched Mean Girls 13 times before selecting the squad. His favourite actor in the movie, surname Adams, seemed written in the stars.
Well, that's what
put
you
him
can
in
say.
there.
So he's got his back covered with that excuse.
He's
Exactly.
got an alibi.
It all
Isn't
checks
it
out.
McAdams?
Yeah, but there's nobody in the squad
Anyway.
with the surname McAdams, so that'll have to do.
Swings and roundabouts.
Exactly.
Well, we've covered rugby pretty comprehensively there.
Yeah, I'd say that's bang on.
So I'd say now it's time to reel out Old Reliable.
Oh, Stephen Jones! Good lad.
We could literally fill an hour-long show with Stephen Moans this week.
I feel like you should take the lead this week because you've had a bit to say in the group chat.
You have.
I'm just the quickest one to start raging about stuff, I think. Okay, first in the gun, Stephen Moans, ITV. Their coverage so far has been nothing short of a fucking embarrassment. It's been absolutely awful. They've got 4 out of the Six Nations home games now. Used to be back in the day all BBC, and then we got the even split 3-3. But they've got all the France games now. Do they fly their pundits out to France or Italy and give a sort of good game day experience? No, they're in some boring studio.
Like the BBC used to do.
They're in some boring studio with the worst pundits. The worst pundits.
But surely they got a French pundit for the French
they
games,
got
no?
they got Alfie in. They got Gareth Thomas in. He played 3 seasons in Toulouse.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
Basically a honorary
right, that
Frenchman.
checks out. But they've got a good like kind of rugby centric presenter.
Oh
right?
yeah.
Kind of like a Craig Doyle. He's known for the rugby. He doesn't really do anything else. ITV's got that. Right?
Well, so they've got Mr. Skidmark Pugash, known by his television name as just Mark Pugash. But we see through it, Mark. We know who you are. He just talks absolute shit and like reads it with his soulless eyes off some monitor of whatever was popular on rugby Twitter like 2 weeks ago. And they've contributed to the whole storm about Marcus Smith, which is another thing that I really don't have enough time to go into my depth of feeling about. I'm a big Quins fan. Love Marcus.
So why don't you just give me a little explanation of what's gone on?
Basically, on one side of it, you've got the Pugashes and the Woodwards of the world who actually don't watch any rugby. They just read, the rugby paper and have some researchers on $5,000 a year go through rugby Twitter, and that's it. And they hype up Marcus Smith because he plays well for Quins every week. He's a very good player.
He is a good player.
But then they do it to the extent where nothing else gets any coverage, which is ridiculous at international level. So that's very annoying and puts unnecessary pressure on Smith. And then on the other side of things, you've got everybody who's not English, and particularly the inhabitants of rugby Twitter, who are like rugby hipsters, who are so keen to prove how clever they are. Squidge, AP Cronje, your ilk. Squidge, love you most of the time, but you've not showered yourself in glory this past month. And they're all just as tiresome as one another. Like, you've got the Clives on one side who don't know anything, and then you've got the Twitter users on the other side who try to prove that they know everything, and everybody just becomes a fucking boring virgin. Wind your necks in, stop it, Let's move on.
I think you've hit that in a nutshell.
Moans.
Brilliant.
Yeah, lovely.
We move on now to our regular feature, Rugby is Shit, in which we try and improve the game that we no longer love. Unfortunately, Biarritz and La Rochelle have dropped us in the shit this week.
Yeah, we had it all lined up. 2-ball rugby. You get a 5-minute period where you can just randomly introduce another ball to the field of play.
And then, in the last minute of that game, the absolute snakes only went and did it before we'd even revealed it to the world.
Next time we do this, we're going to have to get lawyers involved, I reckon.
Right, so I had to devise a next Rugby is Shit. I can't be going this episode without having one, so this leads me on to my official Rugby is Shit for the week. Ban New Zealand. Any player, coach, supporter that has a trace of Kiwi anywhere near them is to be banned from the sport to create an even playing field.
We might struggle to get that one through.
Why?
Yeah, well, we've accepted every single proposition you've brought to us so far, so I think it's high time we just shot one down straight from the off and not even entertained it. So I think that's not going through.
Really?
Yeah, we might have to move on.
We can't ratify that. I'm sorry. Yeah,
It's ruined my
sorry.
week.
What's that?
He's back! This week brings the triumphant return of our roving reporter and legend of the World League, Mr. C Heffler. During this busy rugby period, we've let the big man loose on a nation gripped by rugby. Let's see what he's got for us.
Oh, hello. I didn't see you there. You've caught me on my way to Cardiff to catch a spot of rugger. I'm currently on my 7th of 16 trains to get me from home to Cardiff as stormy and ice batters the United Kingdom. But the saucy minx is going to have to try a little harder than that to get between me and my rugby. I've cracked open a share bag of Murray mints and I have my copy of Burn Baby Burn, the unauthorised autobiography of Shane Byrne. So I'm going to make a start on these and I'll check in again once I've crossed the border.
We apologise, but due to severe wind, all trains have now been cancelled.
I put my bloody neck on the line for this podcast and all it brings me is misery. Blow me away, oh, blow me away. They say you learn something new every day. Well, today I learnt not to taunt Mother Nature. I told her to try a bit harder, and try a bit harder she did. I was left stranded in Bristol and with no way of getting to Cardiff with the Severn Tunnel and Severn Bridge both closed. Thankfully, a very kind local sent me his kayak and paddle, and I set off to row to Cardiff. I did a little boo-boo about 15 minutes ago when I went to change the music on my iPod Nano and dropped the paddle into the River Avon. That'll teach me to read a good book while I paddle in a Category Red storm. So, with no other option, I've resorted to using Burn Baby Burn as a paddle and the inflated bag of mints as a life jacket. I'm on course to reach Cardiff in great time, and with the conditions as still as they are now, I don't see that changing. I'll check in once again once I hit dry land, as I'm just approaching the Severn Estuary now.
Okay, so we were meant to cut to Hef live now, but we don't actually know if he made it. Heffler, are you there?
Ahoy, mateys! How are we doing?
Oh, you made it!
Well, technically,
Technically.
I made it some of the way. Just after I put my voice recorder down, I was caught by a vicious crosswind and was thrown far from the kayak and left stranded amidst 10-foot waves and freezing cold water. Turns out the conditions weren't as still as I had actually anticipated. After an hour or so, I was picked up by the Coast Guard, who, in their words, were doing a cautionary sweep of the river in case of any quote-unquote fucking morons who were out at sea in the weather. I later found their Twitter to send them a thank you DM and found that there was indeed a fucking moron fish from the sea today. I'd hate to be him.
Well, wouldn't that have been you, Hef?
Of course not. They found me in the estuary. Anyway, I asked them to do me a solid seaman to seaman, and they kindly agreed and dropped me in Cardiff. I squelched up to the city centre from the bay, hoping for the electric atmosphere to raise my slightly dampened mood. Anyway, I made it, I'm here, and I'm ready to sample the cracking rivalry of Wales versus England in Cardiff.
England?
Yes?
In Cardiff?
Aye, aye, skipper.
Oh, you're honestly a fucking dipshit, Heffler.
Sorry?
Well, you've turned up a week early to a game that's in a different fucking country.
Oh, fuck. Well, I can't get there now. My kayak's been impounded by the sea police.
Your kayak?
Well, I stole the kayak from the harbour and left a note on the mooring post saying, "See you Sunday."
Oh, Hef.
I know. And the worst part is I'll never find out what happened to Shane Byrne after he retired.
No, it's alright, mate. dust yourself off, and we'll catch you next time. Now, for our final segment on the show, we bring you the much anticipated return of Shitshow and Tell,
Yay!
where we pick apart the cesspool of rugby Twitter and find the worst take we can. This week, it goes to the Shit Take Hall of Famer, Stephen Jones, the journalist, not the Wales attack coach.
For background, Harlequins Rugby Football Club
Come on, you quids.
conducted research which found that 37% of women at rugby clubs have heard homophobic slurs and 59% have heard sexist slurs.
Upon reading this, Stephen decided to make an incredibly valuable contribution to what is a complex and nuanced topic by tweeting, "Sorry, in my experience, this research is bollocks." So that's a quote from the legend of
it's
the
all
women's
bollocks,
game
mate.
and LGBTQ icon, Stephen fucking Jones.
It's not a case of the research being specific to a certain context which contains multiple variables different to what Mr. Jones has experienced. No, all the research is bollocks, women are stupid and rugby is perfect.
Steve, mate, honestly, and I mean this, you're a worse journalist than Heffler. You're a helmet.
You're such a wanker you could capsize a rowing machine.
I think that's as good a time as any to just wrap this episode up. So we're off to warm up Heffler, and we'll see you in a week or so for more top-tier rugby analysis.